Hello and welcome to Marketing Media Money on CNBC Africa. My name is Kiamo Mosipile. On the show today, we explore impactful brand collaborations. We find out how brand partnerships can help companies achieve more together than they can alone. Are these brand partnerships always easy, impactful, or successful? We'll find out about what really goes on in these brand marriages of convenience. But before we get into all of that, let's take a look at the latest marketing and advertising news this week.
Far afield. Sprite has revived an old campaign, Obey Your Thirst, by bringing in Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia Eagles athlete and quarterback, Pro Bowl talent, and the MVP of Super Bowl LIX. The Lemon Lime Soda Company earlier this year surpassed their rivals Pepsi to become the number 3 carbonated soft drink by volume in the US per Beverage Digest data. After winning Coca-Cola's US and Canada media business in March this year and acquiring a $1.7 billion Mars Global Media account in June, Publicis Groupe has acquired PayPal's global media business account, and so building on the holding company's winning streak. Johannesburg-based public relations and communications consultancy Meropa Communications has been awarded Africa Consultancy of the Year by the Holmes Report in London. Meropa Communications was established in 1996 in Gauteng. Meropa is among the world's 250 best PR companies. In new appointments. The Cotton On Business announced the appointment of Leslie Ann Dean as the new country manager for South Africa. Dean has more than 20 years of retail leadership in senior roles across Clicks, Nike, Superbalist.com, and the Foschini Group.
Moving swiftly along, the first recorded brand collaboration was recorded in 1924 when the French winery Chateau Moët and Rothschild commissioned artists to design their wine bottles. This would then set a precedent of brand partnerships for centuries to come. Back in the day, it was every brand for itself, and the idea of collaboration with an industry competitor was unheard of. But fast forward to today, brands have discovered the power of partnerships and the benefits that it carries. We examine what exactly all of these partnerships entails in terms of contractual matters, possible challenges, impacts on sales and revenue, and we find out the impact of these brand collaborations. Joining me for more to explore this topic, I'm joined by Veli Ngubane, the co-founder and chief growth officer at Avatar Agency Group, and Anele Mapanga, the PR lead for beauty, wellness, and personal care at Unilever. Thank you so much for joining us, and more importantly, welcome to the show. A quite extensive look into the history of brand partnerships, which is something you're both privy to. But I'm going to start with a very simple question, just taking a look at it from the outside. Why do brands decide to partner together? I'm going to start with you, Vedi.
Well, there's a couple of reasons. So if you take it that brands have got a human intrinsic, so think of them as people. So why do people partner? People partner to be stronger. People partner to have more impact, and people partner to create value. So in terms of profitability, it can be cheaper to partner with a brand. In terms of effectiveness, in terms of public interest, when this brand comes with this brand, suddenly there's more interest in that partnership, like a relationship or a marriage.
Mm-hmm. And I like that you've already touched on a key point, which is profitability and essentially money, but that is something we'll delve into a little bit later. But Anele, your perspective, particularly on why brands come together and the advantages that Veli has then mentioned, does it work or does it not?
It absolutely works. I think if we all try to do something together versus as an individual, there is more power. And I mean, there's that African proverb that if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go with people. And I think Veli touched on that, right? That partnering with another brand, you're able to leverage their audience as well, their community. Obviously, I think as a foundation, you need to have shared values with the brand. And I don't think you can partner with a competitor, but you can partner with someone who's in another category, right? You mentioned, the winery commissioning an artist, for example, which adds so much talkability, buzz, interest in wine. If you've been selling wine for a very long time, you need to bring some freshness, you need to bring some creativity. And I think that's constantly what consumers are looking for. But I don't think that sales output is the primary, indicator of whether a brand collaboration is successful or not. I think in the world we live in today, you're fighting for attention. And if you can get people talking about your brand for free in the age of social media, you're driving brand awareness, which is equally important as sales.
So you make mention of a number of, I would say, trade-offs, and that the primary focus isn't necessarily on sales and revenue, and where you then derive value is the best. So when then a brand is choosing to collaborate, what would you say are some of the key considerations they should look into? I'll stay on you.
I think is there a fit? Is there a natural fit? Is there chemistry? We spoke about marriage, and I'm going to keep with that metaphor. Like, if people see these two brands together, do they look good together? Is considered a power couple? I think of the collaboration between Victoria Beckham, who is a luxury fashion designer, and the Evoque Land Rover. She designed the interior. So they have that shared value that these are both luxury brands. There's that interest. There is a little bit of a common audience, but there will be some differences that both brands can also benefit from. So I think the key thing really is to find a brand that is similar but is not in the same category as you, so that there's that growth that is happening for both brands.
Circling back to the marriage adage, or looking at it as a way to kind of carve this relationship, are there certain things then brands should guard against when then starting to, explore this idea of coming together?
Yeah,
Really?
they should make sense. When you see the brand collaboration, it should make sense, and it should not cannibalize your market. So you mustn't be in the same category. It must be an extension. Let's say you want to get into a culture, and there's a cultural brand, and you're not that cultural, but you've got historic value. We've seen beverages put tracksuits, and people are wearing them proudly as a culture item. So the big thing is for it to make sense, because if brand have got human intrinsics, they should sound like something, So when your brand is not sounding like its authentic self, then the market will start being alienated. So you have to guard against that. But at the core of it is synergy. When people look at it from a consumer perspective, they need to be saying, "Oh, that makes sense."
Yeah.
I just want to hop onto that, right? I think what you said about culture is so important. And that's, you need to be on the pulse of what are people saying, because sometimes we think we know more about our brands than the consumer, but sometimes the consumer is actually giving you such incredible insights, right? If you look at the Krispy Kreme Vaseline skincare partnership, that was as a result of consumers saying, this is the kind of look that I want when it comes to my skin. You would never think that donuts and skincare go together, but again, just understanding culturally, what is the language, what is the lifestyle, what are the aesthetics that people are talking about, and what are the brands that make sense in terms of partnerships.
I actually want to stay on that collaboration that you have worked on. Were there any other unexpected benefits besides the obvious, key takeaways that you then expect?
Unexpected benefits. You know what? I think a brand like Vaseline has so much heritage in South Africa, and it can be associated with my grandmother, my mother. So I think a benefit of that partnership is that it took it into a space where we're owning culture, young women, modern women, with a baddie culture, right? Because you can be a corporate baddie, you can be all kinds of baddies, but we want to be able to speak to the modern South African woman. And I think whenever you would ask people about Vaseline, they would tell you, oh, my gran used it on me when I was growing up. So for us, it was important to break free from that heritage which we love, but we also want to be associated with newness, innovation, the times of today.
So I want to circle back. In this scenario, we've reached the courting stage where one brand sees the other brand and we can see it's a fit. Now, when it comes to the actual working relationship, are there ever issues in terms of the power struggle, power dynamic on what decision needs to be made by who? And then how do you then navigate something like that?
Yeah, so I think the big thing is who's deriving the benefit, because the reality of it is that there's a brand that sometimes has the upper hand, and what is the need and what's the balanced need state? If you look at Louis Vuitton and Adidas got more equity because they upped the luxury. So when you are discussing, I think you need to almost be fair what's everyone wanting and bringing to the table. And luckily, the brand owners know how to negotiate and see the value in each other. But I think each brand must come as their authentic self, because some brands, like people, like couples, are just much louder, and as a smaller brand or as a more quieter brand, you need to accept that you can't outshout, because that's their brand personality. So if there's a fit and everyone has a respect for each other's brand tone and personality, and no one is trying to be the other, as in relationships, it works.
Yeah. But how then do you then, I understand the fact that you said in any relationship, really, there will be a more dominant player. But when it comes to more sticky aspects of this partnership, whether it be the contractual obligations or whether it be the budget that is on the table, then what are some of the potting shots that the viewer can take and use?
I think we go back to the strategy. We see what the intention of what we are doing is all about. If the intention is to get into the culture, then the brand that's more culturally relevant surely should lead. If the association is meant to take you up a notch in terms of associating with luxury, then the brand that is partnering with them. So there's always going to be a lead and a lead brand in any conversation. But I think at the end of the day, it's the intention of the strategy. What do we want to do? So the pre-planning, even before you see the ad, is probably more important than the actual creative, to say, this is the reason why this will work. If both brands respect that strategic platform of intent and why they are doing it, the creative will have the equal respect.
And in a world where then things are going smoothly and both companies or both brands are deriving the value that they then want to have, how do you measure some of the metrics or put some of the metrics in place to see a successful brand collaboration come to life? Over to you, Anel.
I think, sure, again, it depends on what the objectives are. But for me, it would be, if we wanted to create buzz, are people talking about it? And are they speaking about it in a positive way? So positive sentiment, is it industry leaders? If we were targeting beauty enthusiasts, is it actually catching on in that community? You would also want to get that sales uplift and a rise in brand awareness as well. But I think those are more long-term, right? But I think in the short term, you can tell if something has landed depending on the reactions from people. And then you can look at, the long-term impact in terms of sales with your retailers as well.
So you make mention of the short-term versus long-term benefits.
Yeah.
But then how do you measure when it has resonated or made that impact that you've been garnering for?
Okay, so obviously we had different milestones, and I'm going to use the glazed donut campaign as an example. In terms of the iconic asset, the video asset that we created that went live, we had certain KPIs against that video. We wanted viewed by this number of people. We wanted to have this level of engagement. This is what we want in terms of the assets. But then when it comes to the long-term goals, we want to see a growth in our lotions. We want to see a growth in our creams. 2 months after the campaign, 3 months after the campaign, 6 months after the campaign. And of course, some of the things I cannot, divulge here on the show, but I think it will differ in terms of your function and your role in the campaign. And the KPIs would be linked to each individual aspect of the campaign.
And Veli,
the prevailing thing that we do is sell stuff, so we can have other metrics, but our products need to move, and if you look at a brand like Nike, they've intentionally partnered with sports. And if I'm going to the gym with the Nike outfit, I feel like an athlete. When I'm wearing Jordans on a basketball court, I feel, so all those partnerships, whether it's with Michael Jordan, whether it's with the Olympics, whether it's with sports teams, the benefit is that I have sales at the end of the day, so the interest should convert to sales, because the biggest metric for advertising, there are other sub-matrix, but are you selling stuff? Because if you're not selling your brand, that's when your brand dies. So you can have all the other matrix right, but if you don't have sales as a major matrix, then your investment into that partnership is limited.
But my question is that then the only reason, the monetary value that is derived for brands to come together?
Definitely not. I'm saying it should be the prevailing, because that's what sustains brands. So it should result in more sales eventually. I think, but correcting the brand, wanting to make it cooler, divorcing it from maybe its age, maybe it was seen as your parents' brand and we want to make it, a more modern brand. Those are also metrics that you can achieve. But what you want to drive is interest and purchase, ultimately.
And remember, not everyone is ready to buy right now, today. And that's why you have advertising. That's why you have campaigns. I want to be top of mind for when my consumer is actually ready to buy, is ready to go to the shop, which is why you would have that as an immediate goal. But also you understand in the long term, not everyone is gonna see your campaign today and run to the stores. They might not be ready, right? Especially if it's an aspirational brand, like we spoke about Adidas, you have to save up. But what you want is when the money is there, you're top of mind. They remember what they saw, and they've just been waiting for the opportunity.
Yeah, and then you change perceptions. We started on Isuzu as a client, and they were seen for a particular farmer's market. And we went into collaborations, brand collaborations with things like Fashion Week, to take them out of that. Now you've got this Bakkie or MUX or product that is not seen as associated with fashion, but it's a beautiful product. And the consideration now, people are looking at that product like, oh, maybe it's not. Let me test drive it. Let me see it. Oh, this is nice. It's so fashionable. It's so stylish. And you just start moving the category. So no one is rushing to buy it the next day, but you've now shifted brand perception, and that's a future investment.
Well, staying on the future, considering the fact that we've seen that brand collaborations is on the rise, do you anticipate that this is a trend that will increase well into the future? And should it be a strong consideration for brands going forward?
Definitely, especially for brands that are already being put together by the market. If people are drinking Clippies with cola, Clippies or Coca-Cola must phone each other. If people are having Jägermeister and Red Bull, it's a natural brand. So I think the trend will last as long as it's responsible from a strategic and a creative perspective, and brands aren't just doing it just for collaboration's sake, but again, it's accepted as something that makes sense, because that's the most sustainable way.
Agreed. And yourself, Anele?
Yeah, I think brand collaborations are fun. It forces us also as marketers to reimagine our brands. And what I love about social media is that there's a lot of social listening that you can do to understand what people are saying about your brand. And just on that, there's the Benini Mimosa bottle, right, that was launched by Bernini, and that was because of the habits of the women who were drinking Bernini. They were mixing it with orange juice, and so you just create a product, and you can own that as Bernini. So I think for me, it's really fun. It's a fun time because it's a two-way conversation between brands and the consumer, and there's a lot of opportunity to drive partnerships, I think, in that environment.
So opportunities for collaboration are everywhere.
100%.
Well within reach for a number of brands. And we could go on and on about this very interesting topic, but unfortunately that's where we have to wrap up this episode of Marketing Media Money on the role of impactful brand collaborations. I'd like to thank my guests, Veli Ngubane, the co-founder and chief growth officer at Avatar Agency Group, and Anele Mapanga, PR lead for beauty, wellness and personal care at Unilever. From me, Gyama Mosopele, and the rest of the CNBC Africa team, it's goodbye for now.